Alright guys, so today we got a really special video because we have the Saturn 3 Ultra, which is the latest greatest from Elegoo. So the Ultra came packed very well as usual, and these are all the parts out of the box. So we do get a manual. It's very nice and useful. We got pictures, everything included, all the parts of the machine, the specifications, leveling, and software. So yeah, quite a detailed little manual and great to go through. And also we get a leveling card, which we'll be using to level the build plate. Speaking of the build plate, comes actually in two pieces. We got the knob with the bolt. The Ultra here uses the older style leveling, which has 4 bolts. And I'm guessing they went to this system as it's more durable compared to their usual ball and probably more secure. But the build plate still is tapered nicely, so the resin drains down and everything is heavy duty aluminum. And underneath we do have a protector here. If we peel the corner, we can see the finish on it. So it is a slight texture but very fine and quite an interesting pattern. And here it says to press firmly down on it when we're going to level, which we'll do here in a bit. And then the knob screws in on top here on the arm. Here we can see the cover, and this is a dark look, which is quite unique. And yeah, you guys can see it's quite nice looking, and yeah, just tinted darker. And this is good to protect the prints from UV light and also keep the smells in. And in the back here, you guys can see we do have a little door for an exhaust fan if you wanted to exhaust the fumes out. Definitely love the theme so far on this Ultra. So in this toolkit, this is where everything's gonna be. And you guys can see it's quite full. So we get some gloves, and you wanna wear these if you're gonna handle a resin, a USB thumb drive. Here we get a carbon filter that goes inside the printer, a plastic spatula scraping in the tub, a metal spatula, and this is going to be scraping the models off the build plate. We also get a little antenna, and this is going to connect to the printer as it does have Wi-Fi capabilities. We do get some Allen wrenches and extra bolts, strain filters, and you're going to use this to strain your resin when you're pouring it back into the bottle or anywhere else that you need to filter, and they do include quite a few of them. You also get a couple masks that you might want to wear when you're around resin. And here we have the power supply. It's quite large, and it is a 24 volt, 7.5 amps with 180 watts. And we do have a little light here indicating power. Now in this little box, you guys can see it's labeled US, and this is going to be the power cord that plugs into the brick. Alright, so let's take a closer look at the Ultra here, and yeah, I'm loving the whole dark theme. So the antenna actually connects here on the side, and all you gotta do is just screw it in. And then it does pivot around, and you can find where the brake is here to make it go up like that. So, and while we're over here, we can see that this is where we're going to plug in our power supply, on and off switch, the Wi-Fi antenna, and the USB port, which our thumb drive will plug in. That's all the ports here on the right side. So I do love the whole front, as it's just this nice flat glass look. I think it's plastic, but it does have a clean sheen to it, and our screen is right in here. And this is all plastic, and as we go up, we get into metal, or aluminum should I say here, for the upper portions. So the bed is held on with these 2 bolts, and you do want to pull them out because they will fall out if you're going to flip this thing around. We do have a pour spout on one of the corners, which is nice, and there's also little handles to pick it up from both sides. And we can see we got a matte kind of film underneath. And this is kind of a film that releases much easier and for quicker printing and just more reliability. But yeah, I like how the bed is not too thick. We got a max fill line there. And on the bottom, you guys can see the bolts where you can replace the film. And underneath, you guys can see we have little feet, and this keeps it from touching the ground when you set it down, so the film doesn't get dirty or stuff on it. And also it lines it up here on the base where it just falls in. So we do have a screen protector. Let's go ahead and peel that off. So if we go towards the back, we can see there's a port here, or a plug. If we pull that out, that's going to be a 24 volt USB interface, and this is going to be for this guy here, which is the carbon filter. The printer only comes with 1, but you can have 2 because there are 2 plugs on each side where these filters plug in. So going to the Z construction, one thing to note is everything is very beefy and simplified. Our bed slides onto here, and then we tighten it down with this knob. We do have 2 linear rails, and most importantly, we do have a ball bearing lead screw, which is very accurate and precise. And if we look towards the top, we can see that there's this plastic piece, and the lead screw goes in there, and it kind of keeps it straight. So if we go to the left side, we see it's just clean here. So flipping the printer around, we can see on the back we got a pretty chunky Z axis. It's all aluminum. aluminum. Very nice, clean. And then going down here to the base, we have 2 large exhaust ports, and looks like there's some filters behind there. In the middle, we have the manufacturing label, which tells us some basic info about the printer. And flipping on one of the sides, we can see the bottom. We do have these nice squishy rubber feet, and all clean under here, which is pretty impressive. The printer doesn't really have much holes anywhere except for the back there. Very interesting. All right, so I got the power cable here, and let's go ahead and plug it in on the side. And it powers up. You guys can see the screen lit up, and our USB here is flashing. And there it goes. So it's pretty quick boot up time for the Ultra. Now, what's unique about the Ultra also is that it is running on a Linux operating system, which is kind of cool. And if we look at the screen, not sure how well you guys can see, hopefully pretty good. This is an IPS touchscreen with really high resolution. All the icons look super clean and crisp. And we're going to go through all of the menus here in a second. Let's go ahead and click Tools, Manual, and I'm going to click on 50 millimeters and go up with our Z-axis, so we can pull this foam here out. There we go. So let's take a closer look at the screen. So we got Print, Tools, and System. And up there we can see we got a couple icons. Looks like USB port and Wi-Fi is not connected. So if we click on Print, it's going to let us choose between USB, a local file, and history. USB is going to read naturally the USB port on the side, which nothing is on there, surprisingly. We got a local file, and that's what's internal memory, and nothing's there also. And history, it looks like there was something printed here, probably a test from the factory. So let's go back. Here we have tools, where we can manually move Z-axis up and down and home it. Tank clean, which is going to completely open up the UV lights on the top. We got stop, set to 0, so that's going to set the offset of where the Z-axis is, and we'll go through that in a bit with the bed leveling. And here we have screen exposure, and that's going to allow you to expose a image on the top between text, grid, and full screen wide open. So going back, we got systems, languages. It is on English, but here you can see we have quite a few different ones available, which is pretty cool. Let's go back. We got Wi-Fi, system settings, device information, voice, that's actually off. I wonder what that's going to do. Format files. So it looks like you can format the USB straight from here. Okay, yeah. It's going to ask you to confirm or cancel. I guess we'll cancel. And you can also format the local drive too. Service. And this is how you can contact the company. So yeah, version upgrade. I guess this is going to be like an update. We probably need to connect first. So let's go ahead and try that with the Wi-Fi. And there we go. So it pulls up some Wi-Fis available in the area. And we're going to find my Wi-Fi and then enter the password. So once we've entered that, we're going to click on confirm. And it's going to try to connect, and it's connected. Wow, that was quick. All right, so now we do have Wi-Fi. But yeah, overall, very intuitive and very clean display. A little small maybe. I wish it was a tiny bit bigger, but not complaining as it's very nice and clean. But the font is on the smaller side, but overall, not too bad for these main buttons. All right, so for the next part, let's go ahead and install our build plate. We do need to peel off the protector, so let's do that. And this is a really nice laser edged finish. So our knob's already installed here on the printer, and all we're going to do is just slide the build plate into the arm. So once it's in all the way, I'm going to tighten it up. I'm going to grab our leveling card and put it underneath between the build plate and the screen. I'm going to grab the larger Allen wrench, and we're going to unscrew these 4 bolts, or I guess untighten them. And so your build plate should move around up and down very freely. Make sure it does this before you do anything else. So then we're going to go to Tools, Manual, and we're going to click on Home or back to 0. And that's going to bring it down. And you guys can kind of see it compresses. Now it's sitting flat, and all you got to do now is just push down on the build plate and tighten these bolts back up. And I would recommend do one in the front and then one in the back on the other side as you're pushing down on the plate. Don't push too hard, but you know, a decent amount. And now I'm going to snug them up. And that should be good right there. So now we're going to select 0.1 millimeters and then go up. So it went up just a bit. Not enough though to pull our card out. Let's do it again. Not yet. And there we go. So maybe I'll go one down. So once you get it slightly high enough where you can pull the card out, what you can do is go around and check how close you are everywhere on each corner with the card. So if it's reasonably close, as in it pretty much feels all the same, it should be good enough. You're pretty much done with the leveling. Now, there is one thing to consider as you start printing. If you do have an elephant foot or you're too close and you want to go up a little, what you can do is add more paper to this leveling card to go up, but that's more, harder on this kind of mount. So what you want to do is use the set to 0 in the software. And if you go back to home, which is the 0, so that's completely home. And this is where it's going to start every time you start a print. But if you want to move it up a bit, you're going to choose, your increments. Obviously 0.1 would be the way to go. And let's say you want it 0.1 higher, you would raise it 0.1 and then go back to click this set to 0. So it's going to ask you to confirm, and then you're going to confirm it, and that's going to save it. So because we offsetted it 0.1 higher and saved it, now it's going to start every print with 0.1 higher than the home. But the confusing part is if we go back to the home, it's actually going to go down lower than what you set it at the 0.1 higher. So it only goes up 0.1 higher when it starts printing. Home is always at the very bottom where you level your bed with the card. All right, so we're going to raise this thing up as we are done with the leveling, and we can go ahead and install our tub, which just falls in. Clamp it down with these little bolts, and we're pretty much ready to print. Now we can go ahead and install our carbon filter here, which is activated carbon, and it comes with a little paper here that shows all the details and how to access the carbon itself, which is inside here, and it just clips apart. And on this guy you can see there's a little fan in there, and this plugs into the printer. But in here we have another cartridge, which is in its own box here, and this is where our carbon filter is, and you guys can kind of see it. So you don't really want to touch that as it'll get pretty dirty. But yeah, I like how they enclose it in another capsule. I think you'll just change this whole piece, or you might just be able to buy the carbon. But in any case, it's quite simple, and this clips back together, and then all you got to do is plug it in here on the side like we saw earlier, and it should start working when we start our print. And you can have 2 of them if you wanted to, buy an extra one for even more power to neutralize the smells. All right, so for the next part, let's go ahead and pour some resin inside the tub. And make sure you guys understand, there's harmful vapors here coming from resin. We are using water washable 8K from Elegoo. So this is a little less potent than non-water washables, but still you have to take precautions and make sure you're in a well ventilated area and wear your protective gear, the mask, the gloves. I'm not wearing gloves right now because we're just pouring it in, but once we start handling the models, we definitely going to need to put our gloves on. So polymers inside the resin need to be shooken up a bit. So usually twirling it works pretty well, and make sure they're all combined well, but don't vigorously shake it as you'll put a lot of air into it. Yeah, all we're gonna do is we're just gonna pour it into the tub, and this is a darker gray, which looks really nice. And you're gonna need quite a bit of this stuff as the tub is quite large. So we should be able to get about halfway, it looks like. And we'll close this up right away, as if we have any extra for later, we'll pour it back into this container through a strain filter. And so we did everything we need to do, and we're ready to print. All right, and as you guys can see, it successfully started, sending it wirelessly, and we can see a little preview here and some more information. And the first few layers are going to be long exposures, and then as it goes up, it'll speed up. All right, so it's actually doing something here. It says 0%. Maybe that's just the printing screen. And also you guys can see our carbon filter turned on as the print started. All right, so let's take a closer look as we're printing. Yeah, it looks like there's a little graphic there that shows that it's in progress. 0%, our file, rook.goo. So let's see if anything happens if we click on it. Okay, there we go. We go back to that first menu. So on the very top, we got settings, pause, stop, and time there. Can we click on it? Oh, okay, you can see either layer or the 3D model. So I guess let's go to layer. That seems more interesting. Our percentage there, 0. File name, exposure time, which is 2.5. Bottom exposures was 30 seconds. The print height, where it's at right now, 0.450 millimeters. And the overall model height is 50 millimeters. 1,000 layers. There's our progress bar down here. See a little tip of it. The time passed and the time remaining. So let's click on settings. So here we can control our exposures. So bottom exposure was 35 seconds, and if we click on that, we can put in something else. We also have the normal exposure time, which is 2.5 seconds. Number of layers is next over. So the bottom layers were only at 2, and then transition layers 8. So, and I think, does it go more? Okay, there we go. We can actually scroll down more. Transition type, linear, and the thickness there. So yeah, quite interesting options here. And on other, we have the amount of resin it'll take, I guess. So yeah, pretty cool. So here it looks like we can control the lift rest time and the speeds, and also the retract rest times and the speed for that. So actually quite detailed here on what you can control straight from the printer while you're printing. So yeah, and then here we can just go back. So yeah, really cool. Again, the font is quite small and might be a little hard to read depending on who you are. So keep that in mind for this Ultra here. But other than that, pretty awesome and very detailed information here as you're printing, and great controls too. So we are printing and everything looks good. Every 2.5 seconds or so, it goes up and then back down as it goes to the next layer. But let's go ahead and put our cover on, and that simply just goes over. And what's great about it is there's a groove that it falls into, and it's got a nice tight fit all around, and this helps with keeping the smells in. We do have that activated carbon there neutralizing on the inside, and the lid sealing very well, keeping everything quite minimal on these fumes coming out. And also the cover is going to help protect from UV rays going in and messing with the resin. So yeah, you want to keep this on when you're printing, especially if you're in an open environment like in a lighted room from natural light, as that is what you're trying to protect the resin from. All right, so we're like 10% done at 103 layers. Let's go ahead, click the pause button, confirm, and we'll see if it brings it up enough where we can see if everything's good and stuck to the plate. And sure enough, it is going up actually pretty quick. And maybe you guys can see there, we do have the model stuck to the build plate and everything looks pretty good. And this is a great feature to have if you want to check, make sure everything's going well. So let's click on play and it will continue. And the fans and everything do turn off when you pause it, which is interesting. So yeah, very happy to see that we can pause it and it raises up enough to see. All right, so our first model is complete, and it took 2 hours and 40 minutes, which I think is less than it was predicting. So that's great. Let's confirm. And it goes back to the main menu. So for the next part, you're gonna need a few things to work on your model. And especially if you're serious about resin printing, you probably should consider looking into a wash and cure station. But for today, we're gonna keep it pretty simple. And I'm just gonna use this pan here to get our model off. And also this little tub of water, which will clean it in. And because this is water washable, we can literally wash it in the water. So let's go ahead and grab some gloves. And I'm just gonna use one glove, as I've done this many times and one works out for me just fine. Again, make sure resin doesn't get contact with your skin, as it's not good for you. So let's go ahead and loosen the top here and just slide the plate out. And you guys can see our model there. It looks really good. So I'm just gonna set it down, and we got a spatula here. I can see that we do have a little bit of an elephant foot. So I think we do need to bring our Z-axis up a bit with the offset. Well, let's go ahead and see how easy this thing comes off. See if I can put a corner in there. There we go. So not too bad, but we did have to hit it a little bit there. I'm gonna go ahead and rinse this out. And I got a towel here to wipe things off. And you guys can see the print came off pretty easily. And if there's nothing on there and everything looks good, we can go ahead and slide this back on onto the printer and tighten the knob, as we are going to continue printing. And so as far as cleaning the model, how we're going to do, since this is water washable, is dunk it in this water and kind of shake it around, and that's going to shed the extra resin. Now they do include a brush that you can use to kind of brush on the details. And again, guys, if you want to do this the correct way, it'd be better if you get a wash and cure station where the water would twirl really nicely, and then you can cure it with UV lights once the model completely dries off. And that's quite important. After you do wash it, you want it to let it dry naturally in shaded environment, and then you can take it out somewhere near the sun, but not direct sunlight, as if you go direct sunlight, you might dry too fast and start cracking and whatnot else. So you want indirect UV rays from the sun and not completely in the sun. Alright guys, so let's talk about the cleaning process. So it's actually quite simple. I already went ahead and cleaned the build plate when I cleaned my last model, and you want to do this and check out how well this etching survived here with me scraping the models off. So yeah, very durable finish, and it seems to stick very well also. So yeah, you want to clean this as you don't want things to drip down on your screen underneath the tub. So the next thing we want to do is release the bolts. And what we want to do is save the resin that we have left over back into the bottle. And so they include these little strain filters where you can run the resin through back, which doesn't contaminate the rest of your resin that's already in the bottle. So, and to pour it out, we do have a pour spout here on one of the corners. And if you have a funnel, this probably would be easier, but you can just kind of hold it up in the air and run it through there. But yeah, depending on how much patience you got to get every drop out, pour out as much as we can. And now we can close this up and use it for next time, even though we don't have too much left in this bottle. Now, you can use the tank clean feature to solidify whatever is in there, but I don't recommend doing that as it's just easier to wash it off. And if you are going to do that, then leave a thicker layer on the bottom of resin so it doesn't cure patchy, and then it's going to be hard to scrape it off. So yeah, not too bad with cleanup, especially with the water washable resin. All right, so we're all washed, and a little good trick is this little brush that comes with the printer and get the corners, because you do have resin in there that kind of likes to linger. And another thing to mention is you don't have to clean out your tub every time you're done. It's only if you're changing resin or you're going to print later. So you can just leave the resin in the printer. Make sure you cover it up though. But yeah, simple as that. Everything is clean and ready to go for next time. Alright, and so these are all the prints we printed on the Saturn III Ultra. So as you guys can see, we printed quite a few prints. So let's start with the first one, which is this root that's normally included with the printer, but I went ahead and started with this. And yeah, you guys can see the bottom, and actually our bed leaves a little pattern there. You can kind of see it, which is pretty cool. So first thing to note is how crisp everything is. The letters, extremely good detail. We do have a helix inside. Not sure if you guys can see it, but yeah, and there's some stairs there. Super clean and precise. If we go to the top, here you can see how sharp those words are on top. So yeah, this printer does not disappoint when it comes to the resolution, which makes sense. It is a 12K 3D printer. Now I wanted to print as much detail as I could. So we have a couple busts here to look at. Let's start with this one here, and this turned out very nice. The only issue is down here. I'm not sure if this is me washing it ruined it or what, but yeah, we even have a little gap there. Other than that, if we go higher, we can see a crazy amount of detail, guys. And this print is pretty small. You can see my finger there, or my thumb. The details are quite incredible. This is definitely the sharpest as far as details that I've ever seen. If you guys look at his hair there, very crisp and very detailed. So the next print we have is an elf. I forgot to add supports to this as it needed some of them. One for hair going down here, you guys can see it's melted away. And also under her chin, you can see her chin's kind of a little funky there. But other than that, the print looks incredibly good and incredibly detailed. Again, I don't think I've seen this much detail on any other printer, which obviously makes sense as this is a 12K. Just amazing how much detail there is. And everything just looks more crisp and sharp. So yeah, the Saturn III Ultra here definitely delivers detail as expected. So here we have a pretty unique print, which is like a cathedral or something. But yeah, it looks great from here up. But yeah, if we just concentrate on those very fine details, it's incredible how well they came out. All the little ridges, all the polygons, like it was modeled, which is incredible. And even those little points everywhere just are perfect. Again, extremely impressive print, guys. So yeah, if you're serious about doing some architecture or very small miniatures, this printer will not disappoint. So the next print here we have is quite unique, as it is a functional print of an engine. And this is designed by a person called Sunshine. We got his little logo there. And normally this thing is used for FDM printing to see how good it is, but I went ahead and printed it here to scale on this resin printer, and it turned out really good, guys. I was a little close to the build plate, so I had a little bit of an elephant foot to work with. But other than that, everything else literally turned out perfect. And you guys can see all of the pistons turning, and everything works beautiful. And there's enough tolerance where everything moves very smoothly. So this print here is small and petite, I guess, and there's lots of smooth surfaces, so you guys can see maybe a little better how well the layers go down, and they're practically perfect. It looks very smooth, but at the same time crisp, if that makes any sense. We do have some kind of little layer shift there, but other than that, it really is a great print. And going up to the top here, to the face and ears and antlers, so much detail. And if I could get closer, I would, but it's a little hard with the lens and camera I have. Amazing, amazing detail. And this is all super small. If I bring my finger to here, you can kind of see how small everything actually is. So pretty amazing print and quite detailed. Now the next two prints we'll look at are even more detailed, and we have this Soraya Tech benchmark test print. And hopefully you guys can see. I didn't wash it so well, you can kind of see. Yeah, that's the only thing. I wish I took a little more time to wash them better here. But yeah, you can see that everything prints out beautifully. And if one thing I noticed right away about this printer is everything is just more crisp, especially the wordings and the letterings, things like that. So, and even our overhang here looks pretty much perfect, I would say. So we do have this little cube here that's stuck on some support. So let's go ahead and break it loose. And this is a see-through. You can, let's see if I can hit it just right. Anyways, if we turn it just right, you can't see right through the blocks. But yeah, it's really hard to get it just right, but you can kind of see it there sometimes. So in any case, it is completely see-through, and it's a really, really fine mesh, and shows how incredible the detail is on this printer, and has no problems with very fine detail like that. Now we do have something even more fine that I'm not sure if I'll be able to show you, but this is by Ameri Labs, and it's a test, and this thing is ultra tiny. If we look at this thing, it looks quite incredible. It is extremely detailed. I did mess up some of those little points there on the back end cleaning it, but yeah, other than that, guys, I don't think I've ever seen anything more crisp than this. And one thing I noticed is that there's actually numbers on top that I don't think I've ever seen before on any other printer, which is quite incredible to me, at least. I'm definitely seeing new things on this print than I've ever seen before, and everything is there, which is quite impressive again. So yeah, very detailed and precise. And so for the last print, we have this Eiffel Tower, which by the way is the full height of 260 millimeters, which it had no issue, and printed it all out. And this thing actually turned out much better than it usually does. Again, all of the edges and lines and everything are extremely crisp. We did have a little bit of layer peeling right here, but it's quite minor. Everything else is quite solid. As you'd expect, you can see right through it all the way to the top. And even if we get a little closer here, you guys can see it's all see-through, even through that very fine mesh there. So yeah, incredible print. Extremely detailed, and even our railing here is quite strong and robust, and obviously all there. So amazing print, and it stuck perfect, popped right off, and yeah, very successful, great Eiffel Tower. And to be honest, I didn't expect anything less, even though we just used the basic parameters that come with the printer off the slicer, no fine-tuning whatsoever, which will greatly improve the print. And we didn't add any kind of anti-aliasing or edge softeners or anything like that. So yeah, right off the standard profile, it seems to do an excellent job.